Yeah, well, thank you very much, Robert. I mean, I attended the Nakba event in London on Friday, which was organised by the Palestine Mission to the UK, and I also attended another event yesterday organised by the Balfour Project. And as you probably know, the United Nations, for the first time, commemorated the 75th anniversary of the Nakba. This is a result of a vote by the UN General Assembly. There is no question that people in this country are becoming rather more aware of the Nakba than they have been in the past, and there are a variety of reasons for that, I suspect. One is the fact that social media is so much more powerful now. People are getting their message across, but also, in this country, people they know about the Irish potato famine. They know about partition of India, but when it comes to the Nakba, it's the politicians don't tend to like to talk about it, and neither does the media. And I think what has happened is this is breaking through. And as you were saying, Robert, this is not just a commemoration of something that happened 75 years ago, but is clearly still happening today. And I know that because I also am involved in something called Palestine Deep Dive. And on Palestine Deep Dive, we regularly interview people in the occupied territories right across Palestine, historic Palestine, and we hear. And so it was people should know that when you to your direct question about children, that I think up to 500 children have been arrested and taken in by the Israeli authorities. They actually use law that they kept from the British Mandate. As you know all of this, but for people who don't know, it's an extraordinary revelation that here we have a government that is actually the Israeli government that is using emergency laws that the British put together during the mandate in Palestine. And which brings me to just one other point for your next question, really, which is that what has been quite apparent over the past few days is there's a realization that Britain has a historic responsibility for what happened 75 years ago and around the Balfour Declaration, and it's about high time that Britain should be standing up for the Palestinians and recognizing Palestine as a state. Many of the UN resolutions, I think since 1947, there have been perhaps 140 odd or more resolutions from the United Nations around Palestine. Many of these resolutions were actually put together by Britain. And in allowing this impunity, Britain is actually breaking some of these resolutions it helped put together at the United Nations that went through the Security Council. So it is absolutely appalling. And I don't think enough people understand this. They understand, for instance, that the United States sends some $3.5 billion each year to help Israel arm itself. And Britain also trades with Israel. It's just signed a new trading deal, as you know, which is highly controversial, does not even mention the occupation of Palestinian territories. This is illegal. I mean, actually, supplying arms to be used in illegally occupied territories is illegal. And I think what has really had a major effect on people is that they can see that there's a complete lack of consistency and there is hypocrisy when it comes to Britain and the United States and other countries in Europe arming those in Ukraine who are trying to throw out occupiers. But in Israel, they're arming the people who are occupying. And I think that more and more people are saying enough is enough. We want consistency, we want justice, we want this occupation to end, and we want to recognize a state of Palestine. And I think that's why it's going to be very important in the run up to the general election in this country that enormous pressure is put on all of the political parties, especially those that have committed to do that. I was a member of the Labour Party for 45 years. I was a member of its National Executive Committee, and I was editor of a paper called Tribune, which is a Labour supporting paper. And there's no doubt in my mind that the overwhelming majority of Labour Party members are supportive of Palestine. And that is why there is this policy to recognise the state of Palestine. Unfortunately, there is a leadership currently that says that it's committed to doing just that, but I think by its actions has shown itself to be rather more regarding of Israel, and that translates. So we really do need to see a lot of pressure, I think. And by the way, I mean, you'll be aware of this, but a lot of Labour MPs are very concerned because they know many of them, of course, support the Palestinian cause, but they also know that the votes in their constituencies often depend on this issue. So if there's any backtracking by the Labour Party on recognition of the state of Palestine, that could have a major impact on the election. I think it is down to the when it comes to this. I mean, there's in the Western press now, Western media, there's a lot of pressure being or a lot of comment about how China and Russia in particular, of course, is actually directly in breach of the UN Charter. But the fact that China, which is also a permanent member of the Security Council, has not been strongly speaking out against Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is an issue. But what isn't an issue for the same media is why, as you were just saying, those same resolutions that go back an awful lot longer, because this is an occupation since 1967, over 50 years occupation, not 5 months, it's 50 years. I'm afraid that it does mean that the political establishment, especially in the United States and in Britain, and also in countries like Germany and France, have got double standards, and they regard their relationship with Israel as being more important than international law, it would seem. I mean, what else can explain it? Now, I just begin to wonder, because of course, Palestinians often look around the world and they wonder, where is the support amongst other Arab governments, not amongst peoples across the Middle East, but Arab governments. But increasingly, they may be thinking, well, if we simply cannot get the Americans or the British to support the resolutions, and especially for the British who wrote half of these resolutions, if they can't even support those, then really we have to look at elsewhere in the world for help, and for other countries who are going to take this seriously and get involved in the shuttle diplomacy that is necessary to get serious peace negotiations underway. So I think that the United States in particular, in its absolutely it's blind support for Israel. Let's be honest with you. I mean, the Biden administration hasn't reversed the decision to move the embassy back from Jerusalem, out of Jerusalem. It hasn't taken out any sanctions, despite this being the most extreme right-wing government in Israel's history, and the expansion of the settler program, the demolition of schools, all of this is not doing anything. I wouldn't be at all surprised if Palestinians increasingly looked elsewhere for serious powers to come in and help try and force or encourage a settlement. Now, all I would like to say, I mean, thank you very, very much indeed. I think, given that we are in Britain, and given there is going to be a general election next year, I think an awful lot of thought needs to be, given by people as to how they can influence that election, and bring about pressure on members of parliament. Because if there is, let's say, a Labour government with a small majority, or the Labour Party has to work with smaller parties, or a very small majority for the Conservatives, there is the opportunity. I think public opinion has shifted quite dramatically. And I'll just say one last thing. What we have seen, I think, is because of B'Tselem, because of the other NGOs, because of the UN, Amnesty, all the rest of them, we now have as commonplace what you all already knew, but an acceptance that this is apartheid, and apartheid is having a big effect. People in this country were very much against apartheid in South Africa, and they will be just as much against apartheid as they become more and more aware of what's really happening in Palestine.